Good evening, everybody. I'm Steuart Pittman, the Anne Arundel County Executive, and this is Tuesday night with County Executive Pittman and friends. So our topic tonight is school reopening and listening to stakeholders, and it's topic that has been probably on um, people in the county's mind more than any other over the last week, and even before that. So I'm joined by our health officer, Dr. Nilesh Kalyanaraman, and school board member Julie Hummer, and school board member Melissa Ellis, and Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County, TAC, President Russell Leone. And what we're going to do is I'm going to give a little bit of a background on how we got where we are, and a little bit of commentary on what I think of it. Then I'm going to turn it over to Julie, then Melissa. No, Nilesh first, then Julie, then Melissa, and then Russell. And then we do have pages and pages and pages, more than any other topic that we've done, of questions from people that were sent in. And we have them divided into issue areas. There's no way in an hour that we're going to get to all of them. And in fact, a lot of them are questions that don't have answers yet, or that that nobody on this call will have answers to. But that's okay, because I think the mere fact that those questions are being asked is part of what we want to talk about. That there's a lot of work to do. This is a really difficult time. It's a really uncertain time. Right now, parents are in elementary school are making decisions about whether to send their kids back, if they're in K through or pre-K through 2, to send them into the classroom for 2 days a week, starting on November 16th. If they're in grades 3 through 5, I have twins in 5th grade at Davidsonville Elementary, whether to send them back now for 2 days, starting November 30th, the 16th or the 30th for those 2 age groups. So we have to make a decision about whether to send our kids back for a hybrid model of 2 days in the class and then the other 3 days virtual. Teachers have also gotten, so we've gotten a survey about that. Teachers have gotten a form as well, where they're being asked, will you come back? Will you be taking some leave? Or do you plan to no longer work to resign? So those are their choices. Both of those are due by Thursday. So people have some tough decisions to make. How we got here is that obviously everybody knows that school opened 100% virtual. And I have to say that we did virtual back in the spring, and it was thrust on teachers in the school system with no notice, and they did the best they could. And what we've got now after a summer of planning is, in my view, far better than what we had in the spring. I know it's not. There are a lot of kids that are falling through the cracks. A lot of families that are having to choose between staying home with their kids and helping them get through their school at home, or going to work, and work that they desperately need. So it's not a good situation in this county or anywhere in the world where this is going on. We have said, I have said, and Dr. Kalyanaraman has said for a number of months that a high priority for the county is getting our case rates low enough so that we can get kids back in classrooms where teaching can take place. I see that as a positive. I think most people see that as a positive thing. Most teachers I know didn't sign up to teach virtually when they got into this career. They want to be in classrooms with kids. So the case rate that we talked about for many weeks was to get our rate down to 5 cases per 100,000 population, which in our county would be 29 new cases daily for a 7-day average. We got down to that rate back in June and have not been that low since then. Dr. Kalyanaraman pulled together a scientific advisory group that he can tell us about to really look hard at school reopening around the world and ways to open school safely to protect kids. I've followed some of that. I know that Arlotto, school superintendent, a lot during that process. And they came up with a model that was made it possible to open elementary schools first, where there are smaller cohorts um, with a hybrid model and limit the spread of infection. So there's a lot of detail on that, and you can read that plan. I looked at that. Dr. Raman is the person who I listen to on these issues for all kinds of businesses and institutions on reopening. He was confident that it was a plan that would allow those schools to open at a 10 case rate. So 10 new cases per day, average per 100,000, which is about 58 new cases. Um, and we were below that rate when this was first introduced and first talked about, but we were getting close to it. So the case rate has been increasing since June gradually. If you do a straight line, there have been ups and downs within that. Um, Today, I understand our case rate for the last 7 days is closer to 11. So we are not in what we would have called green territory, where it's recommended that that any of the classes open um, in person. However, uh, it takes time to open the school once you say that the green light is on. So we had the green light when the school board met last week, and the school board approved a reopening plan. Now we have a yellow light, but we don't know by mid-November whether we're going to have a green light again. So that's one topic that we can talk about. Um, the part that I think I'm hearing the most about is from teachers and students that they didn't really know about the plan for hybrid model or the timeline for hybrid model until last Monday when it was brought to the school board and presented. And so naturally, there was not a lot of time for people to ask questions, to think about how it might impact their lives. And that went for students and for teachers and parents. The result of that was a fair amount of anger and frustration, at least based on the emails that I've gotten, that the people are uncomfortable with the hybrid plan starting in November. So the school board met on Monday. They were asked to vote. They did not get enough votes to approve the plan as it was presented. They came back on Wednesday, and they did get enough votes. So, but there was another proposal that was presented by board member Hummer, who she can talk about that if she chooses to, that would have postponed the reopening so that it would start in the second semester in January. My own view is that that's a wise approach right now, given what our numbers are showing us, that it allows 2 months more to plan, improve, communicate, heal divisions that exist right now, and also learn what the cold weather is going to do to the COVID case rates. So a lot of public health people believe that as people go inside with their social life, cooler weather, that there's going to be an increased spread of COVID. And we're starting to see that around the country, and we're starting to see that in Anne Arundel County. So my own view is that it would be wise to wait. The way things stand, it's not likely to happen if they don't go down. But the problem is that this is a large institution. It's a community with people. It takes time to implement a new education model, which would be the hybrid model. You have figured out how to do the virtual model much better than I ever expected. And now it's incumbent upon us to come up with a new model. So that's where we stand. It's as some have said, it's messy. That's the case in every county and every jurisdiction in the world right now, probably. But it's where we stand right now. So I'm going to end with that messy statement that probably makes no sense to anybody, and turn it over next to Dr. Raman, who always makes it make sense because he's a scientist. So from a scientific point of view, Where do we stand and what's going on, Dr. K?
Thank you, County Exec. So yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to run through some of our thinking on our guidance for what it takes from the health perspective to not just to open schools but to keep them open. With the understanding really that what we're really looking to do is provide guidance and support to the school system. Um, we are not in the position, nor are we trying to make decisions for the school system. It's really in an advisory capacity. So what I'm going to really talk about is our guidance that we put out. I guess it was about a little over a week ago now, um, and what went into that, just to help people understand a little bit more what it means, um, also what it is that we know, and what it is that we're still learning. And I think that's one of the key things that we tried to highlight was that this is a living document, our guidance, because we are 9, 10 months into a pandemic, and we're learning more each day. And as we learn more that may affect our thinking, we will certainly update that. And there are areas of uncertainty, and we factored that into our thinking. So in preparing this, we looked at really four major areas. We looked at what are the what are the different grades that can open based on the community case rate. Um, what are the testing goals and availability in the community and school that we want to achieve? How do we do contact tracing in school? And how do we handle cases and outbreaks at school? And those are really the key pieces that we wanted to offer in terms of support to guide this opening process. Um, Apart from that, ACPS has a plan that includes a lot of information on cohorting or creating bubbles, um, screening for symptoms, transportation, masks, distancing, hand hygiene, cleaning and disinfection, ventilation, communication. All those items are covered in their plan, and those were laid out by MSDE, the Maryland State Department of Education, the Maryland Department of Health, and we provided some guidance with that. But that was pretty much put forth at the state level. Um, and so I'm not really going to touch on those today. Those are really school system questions. Um, and so as we went about looking at what are the different grades that can come, what are the different when can the different grades come back at different case rates? We looked at a variety of sources. We looked at what was happening in other countries, what was happening in other states, guidance from the Maryland Department of Health, the Maryland State Department of Education, and we also convened a scientific advisory group composed of folks from the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health and Medicine, University of Maryland School of Public Health and Medicine, and the Morgan State School of Community Health. And so we wanted to get a diverse set of experts to guide our process and to advise us on what we were doing. And so when we looked at the conditions for reopening, a few things stood out. One is that we needed to have some just baseline understanding of what our assumptions were. And those are that there's benefits of getting kids back into school, and we have to balance that with the risks of school disruption or transmission due to COVID-19 and family considerations as well. We assume that students and teachers and staff will do their best to maintain safe practices, but they're not perfect, and we accounted for that. Um, we always talk about the fact that our goal is to reduce risk, but in the middle of a pandemic, we can't eliminate it. And that we assumed that virtual learning would always be available. So as we were thinking about students potentially returning, there would always be that option where they didn't have to. That when we see cases, that there would be more cases in the schools if our community case rate was higher, and that really just has to do with community spread. Um, there's going to be just more opportunities for kids and staff in their daily life to get COVID and bring that into school. So we have to consider that as part of our deliberations, and that if there's a case in school, it could have happened due to community spread or due to spread in school. And part of our job is to make sure that we're minimizing that spread in school, but also recognizing it can happen in both ways. And so to do this, we looked at a few we looked at a few studies, and what we found was that we can really um, break down our recommendations along two different dimensions. One is by grade level, and really broadly by elementary, middle, and high school. And the reason we did that is that for elementary school kids who are typically under the age of 10 or younger, one, they're in smaller bubbles. Their classrooms are smaller, and classrooms don't have to mix. Well, they certainly do during normal operations. Um, there are ways to prevent that during COVID. The other is that children younger than 10 are less likely to transmit COVID. It doesn't mean that they don't, it just means they're less likely to do that than adults. And so that decreases the chances of spread in that setting. For middle schoolers and high schoolers, um, well, for middle school compared to elementary school, your bubble, your cohort is bigger. It's the grade level pretty much because you're taking classes with different people. And then in high school, your cohort is even bigger than that. Your bubble is pretty much the high school. Well, any given student doesn't interact with everybody in high school, obviously. It's hard to separate all those connections easily. We can do it if we needed to look at it from a contact tracing perspective, but that would take some effort and time. And so that's why we divided along those levels, and then also special situations, so children with special needs in technology and in English language learners. And actually, those we had said could go forward even in the summertime when our case rate was higher. I, thinking back, I believe that was in July, late July, when we had that discussion at the Board of Ed meeting, because they have particular needs, and there's ways to handle those situations with additional PPE, additional distancing, other safeguards. And then we also looked at case rates and four groupings of case rates. So less than 5, which is what we had always been saying as really a great area of safety, but also recognizing that as a county, we haven't been under 5 in over 3 months at this point. What happens if the case rate is 5 to 10 per 100,000, 10 to 15 per 100,000, or greater than 15? And that meshes really well with the guidelines that the Maryland Department of Health put out. It offered a broad framework, but we needed to put some more specifics and details so that we can actually provide more detailed advice to the school system. And so less than 5, uh, our advisory group and we felt that the different grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school, could safely come back. And that's really based in part on, like I said, the experience from other states and other countries, and also from modeling that was done by one of our advisory group members to model what would happen if we opened. From a case rate of 5 to 10, we found that elementary school could open safely. And that has to do with what I noted around their small size in terms of who's in their bubble, and that younger kids are less likely to transmit. That's the green zone. High school is in the red zone in that 5 to 10 category, and middle school is in the yellow zone. And we specifically stated that yellow, that caution, means that if you're already open, you can stay open as long as you can manage it. And by manage it, I mean we're not seeing a lot of cases in school or transmission in school, but we also wouldn't recommend opening at that case rate. And the reason we say that is that opening is a lot harder than it is to stay open. It's always easier to stay in your current state than it is to change your state, right? And so that yellow is a caution. Don't move too fast, but you can kind of keep going as you are right now. And then when we look at that case rate of 10 to 15, we have that yellow, that caution area for elementary school. If we were already open, we could see how we're doing and consider keeping them open, but we wouldn't recommend opening in the middle of a 10 to 15 case rate. And then for middle and high school, that's the red zone. Don't open, close down. And then at greater than 15, really don't recommend school being open at all. We haven't hit that as a county, but we do have to keep that case rate ranging in mind in case we do hit that level. That's kind of the quick rundown on the case rates and on the guidance for which grades to open when. We also talked about testing. We looked at testing. We are making testing available to all ACPS students and staff at no cost. at all of our current sites, and then we'll also be adding some testing capacity when schools open in areas with Title I schools, because we want to make sure we address those equity issues around testing availability. And we looked at, does it make sense to require testing, or should we make it very easily available and recommend it but not require it? And from what we saw, there wasn't really a benefit from requiring testing. And that was based on modeling and also on some other not counties, states, and what they were doing. But that is why we are making testing readily available. In terms of contact tracing, this is something that we have been doing for decades. Contact tracing, both in the community and in schools, and frankly, we're more than ready for this. We've been doing this for a really long time. So that's I know there are a lot probably questions about how we do that, and I'm happy to answer that. But this is old hat for us, and we've done it for pertussis probably most prominently. If anybody out there has had contact tracing done in the past 5 years, probably related to that. And then the last is, how do we manage cases in schools? And a large part of that comes down to contact tracing, and it comes down to I'm not going to go into this in detail. Everything that I'm saying here is published on our website in our guidance. But we have definitions for what it means to potentially have spread in school, what we call an outbreak, which is having more than 2 cases in a cohort or a bubble within a 14-day period, and as long as those people are from a different household. And what the implication of having an outbreak in a class is, what the implication of having multiple outbreaks in a class, when that might affect a school, and how we make those determinations. And we've laid that all out. And so I'm going to finish up by saying we provided all that really as a way to provide advice and guidance to say, this is what we think from a health perspective needs to happen in the community, and we're going to make some of those pieces happen, particularly around testing, contact tracing, managing the cases in the school. That's our responsibility. And then here's our advice and guidance on when to open and close. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Ken, Executive. I don't see him, so maybe.
There we go. I think I was supposed to go next, and since there seems to have been a glitch that Mr. Pittman has dropped off, I'm going to go ahead. I'm Julie Hummer from the Board of Education, and as Steuart said, this is something that the board has been, and everyone in the community has been wrestling with for months, is how our schools are going to educate our students and when can we come back. The school board did task Dr. Alato to bring us a plan and a timeline and of when we could return, based in large part on health guidance and metrics given to us by Dr. K. The board, as Steuart said, I did present a different option, but the board voted for this motion moving forward. And so that is the plan right now. There's not another plan on the table. I'm fully supportive of this plan and will be doing everything I can to see it implemented in a safe and successful manner. And so my intent for tonight is to help answer some of the questions, alleviate some of the concerns, and help parents to make the best decision for their child moving forward. And in this year of COVID education, everything we've ever done has been thrown for a loop. And you often hear we're building the plane as we're flying it, and that's very true. And no option that we are given for anything is ideal. The ideal that all of our teachers want and all of our parents want is for our children to be back in the classroom with their friends and with their teachers. But that just can't happen right now. And so we're coming up with other opportunities and trying to help and support our teachers and our students as best we can. So virtual learning for our teachers are knocking it out of the park. They are doing an incredible job. I have 2 children currently in AACPS, and I am so impressed with what their teachers are doing. The innovation and creativity is incredible, and many children are thriving under virtual learning. We have, it's surprising which ones are doing so well sometimes. The children you wouldn't think of are really doing that. But the reality is too that it's for some students, they are not thriving. There's really some needs that cannot be met virtually, especially for some of our children with special needs, our English language learners, some of our classes that really need hands-on work. And then there's other children that just don't connect with a computer. They need a person in front of them. So we know that. The school system has already begun bringing back some groups of students, some of our children with special needs, as well as students at our Centers for Applied Technology. So that is already in place and has been going on for, I think we're in week 3 now. So we've already begun doing that, and now we'll begin expanding that out. And so the way we want to do this now is help parents to determine what is the best option for your children. We're offering 3 different options, and it's going to be a very individual decision for each family. You know your child and how best they learn and what they will do. So I want to encourage all the parents to go into the reopening website and read it carefully and weigh out what will be best for your child. If your child is thriving with virtual learning, then you may not want to make any change. However, if your personal situation with childcare or your student's personal thing that they really aren't doing well with virtual learning, the hybrid model and going in 2 days a week may be a better fit for you. So that's a real quick, because I know we want to get to questions and go into the other people. That's a real quick overview, is that now we are in the mode of moving into a hybrid model, as long as the numbers stay in a reasonable range. As Dr. K has outlined for us, the school system has been following the guidance of the health department very closely throughout this, and I don't see that changing. And so we've always told parents from the beginning, if the numbers change, the plans could change. But as of right now, we are making plans that the first of our children in grades pre-K through 2 will return, if they choose, to the classroom 2 days a week beginning November 16th. So I will now pass on to my colleague from the board, but that gives a quick overview of where we are and what will be what we're all working toward in the coming weeks. Thanks.
Let me just jump in. I'm back. I think my kids were using too much of our internet or something. I got booted out, but I want to jump back into Nilesh, what he said briefly, and just note that the Anne Arundel County Department of Health is the first Department of Health to take the governor's sort of rough guidelines of the 5, 10, and 15 levels and really put the flesh on it and make a commitment to what the metrics should be and how they should move. And that was a brave thing to do. That's why other counties haven't done it, because it does put you in a position where once you put out metrics, you're going to be held accountable to them. And but it's necessary because families need to plan and they need to know what's coming. And but so here we are in this yellow range where it's not recommended that we open, but there's a date set for reopening. So I know that the board meets next week, and I would expect this to be a topic of conversation. And I know that you, Ms. Hummer, put a proposal out there that we wait, that the superintendent supported, but the board was divided. So I'll be very curious to see what happens at the next board meeting, given where the numbers have gone, if they continue to go in the same direction, and see what that does to all of this. Yeah, let's pass it on to Melissa Ellis, and I want to really thank Melissa for being on. I talked to Melissa extensively on the phone about this, and I've always been impressed with how thoughtful you are, Melissa. And I know you and I don't agree on this one. We agree on most things, but I think we're much closer than people think, because we both want to follow the metrics. But I'll let you speak for yourself on all of that. But I think your perspective is really valuable, and a lot of people share it. So take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. I want to really thank you and Dr. Kalyana Raman. You have been very supportive and instrumental through this entire pandemic in helping this board and our superintendent make decisions on how to move forward for our students. I want to, I just want to give a little bit of history on how we got to where we are right now. So July 22nd, that was a special session that the Board of Education had for the public where we got an overview from the superintendent of learning for students in the summer and a preview of learning for the fall. And in that meeting, Dr. Arlato said that schools would be opening virtually this fall. But he indicated that that being said, we were going to continue to plan for reopening our schools, and that there were 14 committees that were meeting and working on plans. We were presented at that time with plans that had already sort of were on the chopping block. They weren't going to work for us. And they were various kinds of hybrid plans. And certainly full in person we knew was not going to be a possibility anytime soon. So the point I want to make is that this is not, we are not just jumping into this, that there have been discussions and plans and looking at different models going on for months now. And a lot of what was driving our decision about when to move forward was we were seeking guidance. We were seeking Dr. K's advice, and we wanted some metrics, and we needed to make a decision on what was going to drive our decisions. And last Monday, we got those metrics, and we learned we were in a place where it was considered safe to move forward with a hybrid plan for our elementary students. And so where we are now is, I know that there's a concern that currently maybe we are in the yellow zone, where if we were going to be, opening our schools tomorrow, that, we should probably pause right now and wait until our numbers get in the green. So the point is, we need to have a plan. We can't wait until we are in the green and then make a plan. We have a plan that the board voted for, that we're moving forward as quickly as we safely can. So what those numbers are going to look like in early November, none of us know. I talked with Dr. Arlato today, and he indicated that, one of our next decisions to make is, what is the date that we're going to use to determine whether we are a go on any phase moving forward? So let's say we open our elementary schools, and then we're looking at opening our middle schools, but suddenly we're in the yellow. Of course, we're going to pause. So what's important for our parents, our teachers, our community, is to have answers, to have a plan, and to know what's going to be happening. That families can make those decisions that are best for them by knowing what the plan is. So the plan currently is to open our elementary schools, our lower grades, pre-K, ECI through second grade, November 16th. Sometime before that, we will see where the numbers are, where we fall in those metrics, and parents will know, okay, if we are in the yellow, then we're going to pause until we get in the green, and then you can send your kids into school. So I just wanted to explain how we got to where we are now and how it is that we're moving into virtual at this point. I also want to indicate that in Arundel County, we are not pioneers in this hybrid plan. This plan exists in various forms, but all very similar in schools and school systems across the country, even in our own county and some of our private schools. So we can learn a lot of lessons from what others have already been doing. I want to echo the applause for the virtual learning that we have going on right now. The hybrid plan depends on virtual learning, and we all know that at any time we could end up back in virtual learning, depending on what happens with this pandemic. And we could find ourselves in a place like we were last spring. We don't know yet. So it's really important to develop some consistency in how we're going to make these decisions, because I think at the end of the day, the community just needs some leadership to help move us forward when the time is right. It's a virus that closed our schools, and it's only a virus that should keep our schools closed, because we have students who are struggling, and we hear from them, their parents, on a daily basis, and we have to represent them.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. So now we have Russell Leone and head of the teachers union. We also have other labor organizations in the school system, support staff and others. And I know that the teachers work closely with them. But on the Wednesday evening, when the board was considering for the second time the reopening, I was there to speak on a mental health task force report, separate issue, but outside there were about 400 cars honking their horns. And as an old community organizer who used to do that kind of thing, I kind of grinned and appreciated it. I encouraged the board not to take it personally, that this is a way that people express their concerns. Some characterized it as orchestrated, and the thousands of emails as orchestrated, whether by you guys or somebody else. I know you wish you could orchestrate something that large, but and that many emails. But the ones that I've read have been very thoughtful, mostly from parents, some from teachers as well. But and some of the questions that we have are teacher oriented. But I really want you to talk, Russell, about the timing, what the hybrid model might look like for teachers, and what you all would like to see going forward. And I just have to say that I have a lot of sympathy for teachers in this situation, because not only has the virtual teaching been hard to adapt to, but the thought of hybrid teaching is if you think about it, as a parent of a kid in elementary school, we're faced with the choice of whether to send our kids into the classroom 2 days a week and then virtual 3 days, or do the 3 days, or do all 5 virtual. And one of our concerns is whether we're going to be in the same class with the same teachers, because our kids have become connected to their teachers, but also whether those teachers who are going to be teaching are going to be teaching both to a group of kids, the half of the class that's in the room at the same time they're teaching to the other half of the kids that's online. So they'll be in a mask and they'll be teaching both to the class and to the camera. And I worry about what that's going to do to the quality of the teaching and to the morale. And I know these are things that probably are inherent in the hybrid model. So speak to us about what we can do going forward, and how we're going to bring this community together.
So first of all, I do want to thank you for inviting me here today and being part of this. I do appreciate that this is a task like we've never seen before. And I also appreciate that you've acknowledged that even though I'm sitting here as the president of the Teachers Association, we do work closely with our colleagues who are in the secretaries and assistants as our support professionals. We've been working with our principals. One thing we all want to see is a safe and sustainable return to schools. Because we know that once we get our students back into the classroom, which is what we ultimately all want to happen, we want it to be someplace where we don't have to start up, pull back, start up, pull back, right? But right now we just don't have the answers that we've been seeking. And you've acknowledged that just from this, there's plenty of questions that are still out there. I know just from Friday, I've gotten hundreds of questions from teachers, and a lot of it is around safety. Teachers are not sure how are we really enforcing the PPE guidelines. We have our special centers are already open. And so our teachers are working with students very closely. They work very closely with the students. But when we've asked, do all students need masks? We get answers like, well, that's a case-by-case basis. We have to look at that. And so teachers are in a position with their students that they're still concerned about. And that's, we really need more solid answers to some of these. Our teachers are also very concerned about their own families and their own health, and having to make these decisions extremely fast. Really within just a matter of days, having to determine whether or not they're going to apply for accommodations, go in and teach, or possibly even taking leave of absences or resigning. These are all heavy, heavy decisions that people have to make. And it is all around the safety piece, because I will tell you, every teacher, every support professional I talk to, they do not want to be away from their students. They know that that's the best environment for them to be in. But right now, with the metrics as they are, as we're monitoring them, we're wondering, is this the right time? And also, do we have time to prepare for that? We're looking at just a couple of weeks. And when we look at the amount of time before even just January, the 2 days in for some of our students, we're only looking at 14 days in total for some of our students to be in. And we're wondering, is that the right time to prepare and also possibly uproot some of the relationships that have been built? Our teachers are doing an amazing job, as Ms. Hummer and Ms. Ellis both have acknowledged, in developing these relationships with their students in this virtual space. The thought for some teachers, they are up crying because the thought of them losing some of their students or possibly being separated from their class. And so what we need as teachers, as educators, is we need the answers, because we've heard that, there are solutions for these concerns. Ms. Ellis, I believe you even said in your closing remarks, we have solutions for all the concerns we've heard. Our teachers are not hearing them. Our support professionals, they're not hearing them. So that's something we want to be part of that dialogue that's more rich. And how can we move forward on that? And that's what we're looking for.
So, yeah, well, one thing I've learned in my job is that you can have a really good idea, but if people don't buy into it and they're not engaged, then it's a really bad idea. Yeah, this obviously, and I take some of the blame for this, because during the pandemic, we've had to make decisions quickly. The governor's had to make decisions quickly, and we make them generally based on health metrics and somewhat on, but in addition to that, on economic impact and on the disruption to people's families and the things other than just getting COVID. And I have to be honest that when Dr. K was working on the metrics, and Dr. Arlotto was working with him, I thought, this is good. This is a plan. This is a detailed plan. He's got all these experts, and I know that we want our kids in school. So I am 100% on board. And that's what I thought on Monday. And then I heard what people were saying in response in the emails, and I thought, we don't do this in the county council this way. We slow walk it. We put it out there, and then the bill, and then the public has time. They don't vote on it the same day, the first day that they see it, and the first day the public sees it. And the other thing that is always done with the county council is that the administration, and usually it's always the department head of the department that's affected, is asked to testify when the bill is presented on what the bill means to them. And it was curious to me that it wasn't until Wednesday when you, Julie, asked Dr. Arlato his opinion, that it was the first. He may have expressed his opinion to some of you individually, I don't know, but it was the first time that he had publicly expressed his view that the school system would be better served by having more time to make the transition, and to wait into January. But what happens then? What if, maybe this is a question mostly for you, Russell, but what if we wait and there's communication and there's some improvements, but we get to January and say the health metrics are good in January. I hope they are. Is the hybrid model viable at all? Are we going to be able to move forward? Or are we going to be right back where we are now?
So I think there are many things with the hybrid model. It's been acknowledged that it is messy, right? There are so many things that we still need to see. And I think as we move towards that, we have to consider so many more options that I'm not sure that we've had the time to do. I know we've talked about in the hybrid plan, 10 to 12 kids in the classroom, 10 to 12 kids virtually. We have a lot of students or a lot of classes where the student enrollment is higher than that. And that's creating some of this angst that is there because we want the kids to be there safely. But then if we're not able to do that because of the numbers of kids in a class, that's what's creating some of the option of your teacher may not be your teacher anymore, right? I wish I had a crystal ball on that, but ultimately, like I have said before, we all want our students back with us, and we are more than willing to work towards a goal of that. But right now, the safety is just not been answered enough in our minds for how it's being enforced and how are we carrying through with that. And so that's where we are.
Yeah. So let me read some questions and some categories of questions. And I'm going to read them because I think they should be heard. I'm not sure that anybody is going to have the answers to them. But if anybody wants to jump in on any, feel free. I'm going to read the first. They're divided into sections. There's hundreds of them, but there's divided into sections. And the first section is the virtual and hybrid options. Jen asks, what if we choose the hybrid option, but then feel safety measures aren't acceptable after we choose? Having to make a binding choice now seems really unfair given the lack of information. Then Heidi says, I want to know if my child will have the same teacher, hybrid or virtual. Why not survey teachers first? Doing the survey simultaneously so that we know which teachers are going to be coming into the classroom. Doing the survey simultaneously provides us no information in advance to plan from. This is truly a driving force as to which option we may even begin to consider. Consistency and routine are important to young children. Why not aim for that? That was Heidi's question. What will the students' experience look like if they go into the classroom? We've heard very different answers. I'd like more information on recess and socialization in the 2-hour break period. How will the school system reach out to families who have not submitted a response to ensure that their preference is recorded? Are they automatically going to be put in one category? Yeah, it goes on and on just about the two different models. And so we've addressed that. Does anybody want to say anything about those kinds of questions?
Steuart, I'll be happy to address some of those. Um, the, the based on the timeline that has been implemented, um, there is not going to, we will not be able to tell parents ahead of time what they're, if they will keep the same parent, the same teacher or not. We're currently collecting preferences from all the students and from the teachers, and then based on the numbers, they will be assigned. Every effort is going to be made to keep children with their teachers, but that may not be able to happen in certain cases. If a teacher receives accommodations to teach virtually, they will not be the hybrid teacher. They will not have the hybrid students because we want the teacher in the classroom with them. So that is a guarantee that we cannot give to parents at this time. When it comes to the interaction in the classroom, I want to be very clear with everyone that hybrid learning is not going to be the normal classroom that we all remember from last year, but it's also not going to be virtual learning simply in a different building. It is going to truly be a hybrid of the two. There's going to be interaction with the teacher, with classmates. There's going to be social things. So it will give many students that social interaction and human contact that they need, but it's not going to be same as the regular classroom. But there will be opportunities for movement. The 2-hour break in the middle of the day, we'll have recess and lunch. And it's not at 2 hours every day, but recess and lunch, and then other activities. There'll be small times for intervention, small groups. There'll be times for our staff to be really creative in there and find other ways to interact. I know when I was teaching, I loved being able to read aloud to my children, but there wasn't a lot of time in the day. And that may be a time where those type of things can happen. But I want to stress to everyone that I don't want people to choose hybrid thinking it's going to be back to school as we had in February last year, because it's not going to be. But I also want them to know it's not going to be virtual and that the children are sitting in front of a computer all day just in the school building. But there's going to be some limits. Children will be required to wear masks. They will be seated 6 feet apart. And we are going to encourage to keep that 6 feet apart. Teachers may come closer to students occasionally, but I think as we know that really the encouragement is 6 feet apart and not be closer for any extended length of time. The risk is when they're close by. There are concerns with a lot of our younger students that's really hard for teachers to do because they need to be in contact, because little people can't button their coats and little people can't open their milk cartons and things like that. And so that is a greater concern for our teachers over some of our youngest learners. And also, as we think about that, as I said, students are going to come back wearing masks. If your child can't keep a mask on for very long, a hybrid model may not be for them because they will be required to do that. If your child can't sit still and you think would have a really hard time in the 6-foot bubble for most of the day, then hybrid is not going to be the best choice for them. So that's knowing your child when we come through. So those are all factors that you need to consider. Talk to your children. Do they really want to come back? Are they missing their children? But you need to explain to them the limitations and that it is not going to be as they remembered. There's going to be a lot of fun. They'll love seeing some of their friends, but it is going to be different. And there's a very real possibility under any model that they could have a different teacher than they currently do right now. As I said, all efforts are going to be made not to do that, but it's really going to be very dependent on the numbers as we hear from staff and parents.
Right, and if I could.
Yeah, in just a second, I just want to say I love your positive attitude and that that's what makes, that's the beauty of the magic of our school system is when everybody is working together on moving in the same direction and celebrating how good we are, because we do have great stuff going on in our school system, and we got to hang on to that. I just hope we can get through this period with united, not divided. But go ahead, Melissa.
Yes, thank you. Right, I wanted to piggyback on some of that and echo that the classroom experience will be different than students have experienced in the past. They will have classmates virtually, joining them from home. I have read now many testimonies as I've been exploring these options. I've read plans from other school systems, but I've also I know a lot of members of our community have on social media asked for other people who have already experienced this to share their experiences. I have only read positive experiences from teachers and parents from other school systems that have implemented the hybrid model. Um, and it seems to be working in other communities. Are there challenges? Absolutely. And one parent talked about how they keep tweaking it and making it work better and better as they go along. And so those who want all of the details, every detail, and down to the last little detail, to be understood before we can move forward. We cannot allow perfect to be the enemy of good. I know that Mr. Pittman, this is not supposed to be a debate, but you did lay a lot out there that I do think we need to address. First of all, I want to go back and say that the motion that was made last Wednesday was not the same motion that was made on Monday, specifically because we did listen. We heard a lot, hundreds of emails from the community, from teachers, from parents with their concerns. All of my questions and all of my fellow board members' questions, both Monday evening of Dr. K and then Wednesday, Dr. Arlato, were intended to address the concerns that have been raised and to improve the plan. And we are always going to be moving towards improving the plan. What we saw Monday evening made it seem like it would be virtual school at a desk for 6 hours a day. We know that that's not the case. Dr. K confirmed that that's not really a healthy environment, that to be developmentally appropriate, kids do need to play. They need to move around, they need to interact. So we now know that there will be circle time, there will be stations. I talked to Dr. Arlato just today to ask, how are we dealing with mask breaks? That is something, is that something that's going to be happening? And he said, absolutely. The principals are going to meet with their staff and work out what works for their school in that regard. So that's one of those details that we can't tell you at 10:05 every day, every student is going to take their mask off for 5 minutes. It's not like that. It's going to be, a school is a community, and they're going to work together to make this model work best for their students in their school. We know that teachers love their students. They want to be able to provide the best for their students, and we're all in this together. We're at a point where, again, it's only a virus that should keep us out of our schools. And so we need to, once we set metrics, we need to make a plan. And we have a plan. And that's what should dictate what we're doing next. The mental health, I know you, Mr. Pittman, you brought up the mental health of our students. And I know that was the last meeting that was had for the mental health task force, was to kind of reassess where we are, the impact that COVID and some social events in our country have impacted students and families. And the AAP recommends that students are much better off in school than at home. And so we have to weigh the benefits and risks. And right now we are at a point, we have parents who are answering the survey. We have parents who have indicated they want their students in school those 2 days a week. They and a couple more things that were brought up, kids only having 14 days in school before the holiday break. Those 14 days, that's getting students in November versus January. So we're not just talking about logging hours in a classroom. We're talking about this point in their lives. They will actually have made contact with their teachers and their peers. And there's a huge value in that that will carry them through to later when maybe they will be back to virtual. Making those connections in the classroom will probably help a lot of those students who are struggling right now doing virtual school at home, because they will make those connections. Oh, there's my teacher. I've now spent time in the classroom with her. And there's my friend Joey. And, making those connections will probably really help those kids who are struggling with virtual learning. And as far as safety and contact, there will be some contact. Teachers will, first of all, teachers will have access to gloves. But if they need to help a student, the guidelines are not every person should stay in a 6-foot bubble with a mask on at all times. Everyone should be wearing a mask throughout the day, but there is going to be some amount of contact. If a teacher ties a student's shoe, that doesn't go against the guidelines that someone should not be within someone's space for more than 15 minutes. That's a moment of helping that student, and then they move on. And one more concern that I heard brought up was student enrollment. If a class is higher than that 22 or 24 students in a class, then there may be too many in the classroom. We can say with almost absolute certainty that a class of 30 students is unlikely to have 30 students enrolled in hybrid. So it could happen, but that's where there may be some shifts. But I'm saying that is going to be very unlikely based on, some parents are going to choose virtual for their students. So can we guarantee consistency with the teachers? We can't guarantee that, but the commitment has been made that every effort will be made to keep teachers and students together. And we all recognize the importance of that. But it can't be fear that is keeping our students out of the classroom. It needs to be the metrics and the health and safety of our students, because there's other health and safety concerns with keeping them out of the schools.
Thank you. Yeah, and I hope you're right about the benefits of the hybrid approach. We'll only know when we get into it. And I agree with you that not all the questions will be answered up front.
Steuart, may I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay. So I hear you, Miss Ellis, and I hear you when you say we can't wait for perfect. And I don't believe our teachers are waiting for perfect. I believe that they are waiting for the basic assurances. I've heard Ms. Hummer, and this may be a question for Dr. Kalyana Raman, the 6 feet social distancing. I have had pictures pictures sent to me where I see between class desks, 3 12-inch tiles between from one edge of the desk to the other. So are we measuring, and this is for you, Dr. Kalyana Raman, are we measuring from person to person, or are we actually measuring that 6 feet between that space? Because I can guarantee you that those kids who are in second grade and first grade, they're going to want to get up out of their seat. They're less than 3 feet from desk to desk in some of the pictures that I'm seeing. So that's one of the basic things that we're talking about in terms of, are we truly enforcing and setting ourselves up for our kids to be in the safest environment? So Dr. Kalyana, can you explain to me, are we measuring from where that kid is going to be sitting physically to the next place that the kid is sitting physically, or is it truly between the people?
Yeah, that 6 feet is between people. Whatever tables, desks, that's up to the schools to sort through the physical infrastructure. But 6 feet refers to people.
So these are the kinds of details that, whether there's a good answer or not, there's there's a feeling among some parents and teachers that they don't know, and so there's a lot of concern. And I agree, we can't let fear be the driving force, but we also have to do everything we can to reduce fear of going back to school, fear of going to work, fear. Clearly there's a lot of work. Um, Drake Smith, who's on the board, keeps the student member of the board, keeps shocking me with his wisdom and his focus in all of this hasn't been whether to go back or it's just been wanting to learn more about, as a young person does. That's what we learn from them, is they love to learn and wanting to learn more about the impacts of all of this and hear from people on it. So I'm sure that people are going to continue to speak up regardless of what direction we're going, and the school system's going to hear more. The plan is going to improve no matter when it starts, and I think we've all said that that it can only improve just as the virtual learning is improved. And you're right. I don't want to get into a debate, even though I guilty as charged. I have put forth my position and put it forth pretty clearly. And so thank you for putting forth yours, Melissa. And I expect it to continue. The questions that are here, we can't get into all of them. I know people are emailing these questions to the administration, to their principals. They were probably coming up in teacher conferences, even though they weren't supposed to be coming up in teacher conferences over the last couple of days, because the teachers don't have all the answers. But it's absolutely essential in my view that that this institution and all the parts of it, the whole family, they like to say, of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, make sure that the communication is happening. Make sure that where there are answers, there's time to share those answers, and those questions can be asked. And
Can I ask you a follow-up to that, Steuart?
My own view is just that a little more time might bring us a long way forward in terms of doing whatever we do successfully. But yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
Your office shared a number of questions with us, just to let us know that the community is asking if there's any updates to what we've already seen. In other words, if you received any more questions after what was sent, we would love to see that, because I know obviously we're not going to get to every question tonight, but I do want to ensure, I want to comb through our website and these questions and ensure that as much information as possible is presented so everyone can see.
Yeah, we will absolutely share these questions. We've shared them with you. We'll share the rest of them with you. We'll share them with anybody who wants to see them. And then there are another, a few hundred more on Facebook probably, or maybe they're just comments. Yeah, I know you're putting in a huge amount of time. All the board is putting in, most of the board, I think, is putting in a lot of time right now, dealing with all of this. And I know that everybody in the administration is too.
Steuart, can I speak again?
Everything off.
Yeah.
So thank you, but
yeah,
go ahead.
Steuart, could I say something? So, as you were saying, I've been reading all of the thousands of emails we've received from parents and teachers, and I've been keeping a tally. And I will say that we're getting more questions and concerns from parents than we are from teachers. We're getting a lot from teachers, but it has been more the parents who are concerned about losing the relationships with their children, with their teachers, who are concerned about the safety measures that will be there. And all of those things are very important. I don't want parents to, I'm just going to reiterate again, I don't want parents to believe that this is going to be like normal school when they go back. And I don't want them to think that it's one way or another is going to guarantee their teacher, because that may not happen. And that is going to, when we talk about mental health, if a child loses their teachers and the relationships that happen, that will be an impact on mental health. And those are all the realities that we're going to have to deal with in this as we move forward. So as Steuart has said, I had advised on a different plan to target our students more as to who's brought in. That's not the plan. So I am moving forward with this one to make sure I'm taking notes. Every email that I read, I'm taking notes and compiling lists and trying to find out the information to make it as successful as possible. But everyone needs to know, as Dr. Arlotto said, this is messy and it's difficult. That is going to be the case whatever plan we do, because the year of COVID education is messy and difficult. And there's not any one right answer to have, and I will be working my best for the teachers, the staff. I'm hearing TAs, I hear you. They sometimes feel like they're forgotten, but I am listening to you and really trying to take into account your very real concerns about what this will mean for your safety in the classrooms, because you're called on to do a lot of the very in touch work. And so all of those things, and also, but we're not we didn't touch on our custodians and our secretaries and our food service people who have all been back in the buildings for months and working. And we talk a lot about the concerns for the health of our teachers, which are very important, but those other people are also all in the building and they move around a lot more. They are not in the cohorts and the bubbles that our teachers will be in, and they will be exposed to a lot of children. So all of these health and safety concerns, we must think of all of our employees that come through and really tackle these hard questions. And, I'll say again that our school system has been working very closely with Dr. K and following his guidance, and I hope that will continue, because I do not want to put anyone in our staff or our families at any greater risk than is necessary. And so I will be putting all my efforts moving forward to make sure that those things are addressed to the greatest extent possible, that we can do this. Because if we are going to move in on this timeline, then we owe it to all of our stakeholders. I don't like that word, stakeholders, our families, our employees who are part of our family. We owe it to all of them to take all of this very seriously, and not to dismiss a single concern that is brought to us, but take them all seriously and try to address them as honestly as possible.
Wise words to end on. I'd say we're running a little bit past 7, and I think this has been constructive. I know people are frustrated out there, and they will continue to be. But I trust that Dr. Arlotto, his team, the teachers, everybody, the whole school board, they really want to do the best they can in a really difficult situation, and they will. They've done extraordinary work up until now, I believe. Whatever we do, whenever we do it, it's going to be done as well as it can possibly done. So thank you, everybody.
Steuart, can I ask a quick question at the end? I just want to, because I know we've had a lot of discussion here. Can we ask again, Dr. Kalyana Raman, like at this moment, what is his recommendation for where we are now in terms of, because we've referenced some of the metrics with some of the numbers going up. Can we just, I don't know if I'm able to ask that.
Where we are in terms of the metric? Yeah, I think so. I mean,
well, and in terms of what's his what is his view right now? Is he sticking with it's time to open up hybrid? I just want to hear just directly.
Sure.
Now.
So our guidance, as I noted earlier, is where we are now is a case rate of about 10.5 to 11. And so for elementary schools, that's which is what we're talking about, that's done open today. And I think that, our advice is really centered around the school system making that decision for their opening date and what logistics they need, what families need, what staff need for that date. So I can answer the question for today, but I can't answer the question for November 16th.
Thank you.
And I'll just reiterate that, as we've said, we're all committed, all of us, to the health and safety of our students and our staff, and that absolutely we have the metrics, and those will be driving our decisions. We absolutely will follow the guidance of the health experts, because that's what this is all about. It's what's in the best interest of our families and our community.
Excellent. All right. Well, good evening, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, hopefully on another topic.
Have a good night.
Thank you.